Hi everyone, it's Janet and welcome to my channel. Today I'm here for Creative Escape Papercrafting and I'm going to make 10 cards using their January 2019 card kit. This has a romantic theme, but it can be used for a lot of different occasions. If you would like to see what was all included in the card kit, please look to the right hand corner and click on my unboxing video. I had a lot of fun working with this kit and I can't wait to show you what I created with it. So let's get crafting. To get started, I'm going to prepare my stencil for use. So one thing I like to do is make it sticky so that I don't have to worry about it moving around so much on my paper. So I use Zig two-way glue for this. I apply it liberally over the top of it on top of a glass mat. If you don't have a glass mat, just use some kind of surface you can either wash off or throw away when you're done. Before it's dried, go ahead and remove it and then wipe it down, or as I said, throw away whatever you were using. Then let that dry, and because it's the two-way glue, once it's dry it's removable. It will stick fairly decently to anything you put it on, but it won't stick so hard that it will rip your paper or anything like that. Now I'm going to apply the Vicki Boutin Creative FX Silver Glaze over the top of it. I've got a spatula here. You could use a plastic knife if you don't have a spatula. That works equally well, and I used that for a long time before I purchased the spatula. But you can go ahead and just apply that liberally over the top of your stencil. It doesn't matter in my case for this particular card if I go over the edge of the stencil. I'm going to trim it down anyway, so it doesn't matter. Now you apply this a lot like you would apply peanut butter to a piece of toast, and then you just use your spatula or knife to smooth it all out once you've got it applied, so that when you remove your stencil it's nice and even. And then take the stencil away and you should have a beautiful result like this one. Super easy. Off camera I prepared my sentiment. It's this You plus Me on a rectangle cut out of a double stitch rectangle set die. And the You plus Me sentiment comes from the custom stamp set in the kit this month. So I'm going to put the piece that I made earlier with the stencil on this 6x6 card base. And I will point out that I smudged this, unfortunately, after I pulled off the stencil, but before it dried. It won't interfere with my card because I'm going to cover it up with this lunar peak embellishment that I cut from the 12x12 sheet. Once it was cut, I matted it onto some pink cardstock that was included in the kit, and then I'm going to go ahead and apply this 6x6 stencil piece right on top of my card base. Now I'd like to use wet glue like the art glitter glue that's my favorite glue at the moment. I've gotten a lot of questions about this glue lately, but it is art glitter glue. Dries clear and it adheres really well. At this point I can apply my embellishment on here. I have put a piece of fun foam between the lunar peak embellishment and the pink mat, and I'll apply it right here next to the You plus Me, and I'm going to use the stencil pattern at the bottom as a guide. I'll go ahead and apply the You plus Me sentiment on a piece of foam tape so that it matches the height of the lunar peak embellishment. And then I'm going to apply one of these beautiful stickers from Prima. I would call these epoxy stickers. They're thick and they have pieces embedded in them of stars and stripes, and it's very dimensional and multi-tonal. They're really, really pretty. I use these a lot in my cards. The final touch are a couple hearts. These are from my stash and they're Tim Holtz heart gems. I thought it really matched the style of this card pretty well. And that finishes up card number 1. I'll start out card number 2 by cutting out a large circle die using one of my COTTAGECUTZ die from my stash. This is Nested Wacky Stitched. And then I'm going to take one of the stitched circle set dies that I have, also from COTTAGECUTZ, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the middle of my circle out, and this is going to make a frame for my card. The frame is going to be used as a focal point. And to secure that circle on the interior where I want, I'll just use a piece of washi tape. Now, isn't this mirror card just beautiful stuff? I'm going to definitely go and check CEP's website and see if I can get some more of that. It is beautiful. Alright, so now I'm going to heat emboss a couple of the stamps. I've got a heart and 2 stars. There's actually 3 stars in the stamp set, but I just used the first 2. And then the heart is shaped by stars, so it's kind of like the constellation, like a Big Dipper, a Little Dipper. Next, I'm going to use some Ranger heat embossing powder from my stash. And then I'll go ahead and heat emboss it and watch the magic happen. I'm always fascinated with how beautiful heat embossing just comes to life once you apply the heat. It's gorgeous. Alright, so now it's time to apply my frame. Again, this is a focal point for this paper, for the center of the constellation. At least I think this is, well, actually it's probably more like a galaxy, isn't it? Anyway, science was never my strongest subject. And who knew I would have to know that to craft? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and apply some of the heavy metal sequin set, which I got from Creative Escape a number of months ago. I think you can probably still get that at their store also. If not, take a look in your stash. You may have something that will go quite nicely with this. The heavy metal mix has silvers and stars. It's got some pinks, like the rose gold pinks in it. It's just really pretty. Okay, so once that's secure, we're ready for the next step, and that's to put the sentiment on. I chose to heat emboss You Put the Stars in My Sky, and I put that on some more of the rainbow mirror cardstock, and I think it turned out pretty good. I did not know how it would work, but it heat embossed wonderfully on that mirror cardstock. Then finally I'm going to take one of those Prima stickers and I put a little piece of foam tape on one side, and that way it'll rest on the frame and be all even, and that finishes off the card. I just love that mirror cardstock and the whole look of this card. It's so pretty. For card 3, I've cut a piece of cardstock from the Prima collection that looks like pastel granite to me. It's very pretty, and I've applied that to my A2 card base using wet glue. I also went ahead and stamped a sentiment on this blue cardstock that says "Never Stop Dreaming," and of course that is from the stamp set included with the kit. I heat embossed that actually. I wanted to point that out. I'll put that in place, and then next I cut out a strip of these 3 little posters from one of the cardstock pieces. This is a piece that matched the same items that were in the 12 by 12 cut apart, and that just fit really nice there. I just cut or trimmed the end off of the right side. Now I'm going to use that mirror circle cardstock that I cut out earlier, and I put a piece of foam tape on the top and bottom and glue in the center so that it can stand on top of that strip. And of course I had to use this beautiful rainbow mirror cardstock. I couldn't let it go to waste. I found another circle pattern that I liked in another piece of cardstock and used that wacky circle die to cut it out. And I did have to take it out of the middle of a piece of paper, but I'm going to show you how I was able to still use that paper. It gave me actually an idea, and you'll see that soon. And then finally I'm going to put one of those Prima stickers on to kind of finish up the whole circle theme of this card. And there it is. That's card number 3. I really like how this turned out also. Very unique. Now on to card 4. I'm going to bring back the stencil for a minute, and I'm going to start with some distressed oxide ink. I'll speed this up so it doesn't take too long to show you. But I'm first going to apply Salty Ocean in 2 areas. Then I'm going to do the same with Wilted Violet. Then I'm going to come in with Worn Lipstick and place those also in 2 areas. And then finally I'm going to fill in the blanks with Cracked Pistachio. Now if you have any trouble with applying oxide inks or distress inks onto plain cardstock, you might try this with a stencil, because the stencil helps the blending just happen naturally. And you'll see what I mean here when I show you the end result. Isn't that just beautiful? These beautiful pastel blended colors were so easy to achieve. And the best part is it looks really complex and difficult. It's always impressive to your recipient. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I had trimmed down this piece, and I'm going to put it on a piece of the purple cardstock that came in the kit. And then I will apply the back of this with wet glue and attach it to my square card base. And it's going to open at the top. So there I go with my art glitter glue, and center it on my white card base so that it has a white and purple matte this time around. It's always fun to add a few different matte colors here and there. My sentiment says I love you, and it uses those words and the heart that is shaped like they're constellations with little stars and the lines connecting them. It's a cute look. I really like it. And in this case, I am using the same purple for the sentiment that I'd used for the first matte. And I'm using the included Delicata shimmer. It's actually called White Shimmer. It's a mini ink pad that comes in the kit, and it's really pretty on this purple. Look how gorgeous that is. Now sometimes you have to apply a couple layers of it because the white kind of, doesn't matter what brand it is, it's a little bit hard to get to be bold. So just use a few layers of it and it will work out well. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply the sentiment strip, which was cut to fit the card. And then I used a 1/2 inch glue dot and some of that beautiful cording that came in multiple colors. And it included a lot of purples, so I thought it would go well on this card. I'm just looping and pushing it into the adhesive, looping and pushing. And then on top of that, I'm going to put one of these Prima stickers. I just think it's such a pretty look. After I finished that, I felt like I was missing a loop, so I put a mini glue dot at the end of the cording, wrapped it around, trimmed it, and then I'll add another glue dot and just tuck it in underneath that Prima sticker. And I'm just going to make the loop perfect so that it loops around the I. Therefore, it won't cover up the phrase or the word I, but it will look more even to the I. And I felt like that really did the trick. So there you go. All finished. I still felt this needed a little bit of shimmer, so I took my Wink of Stella pen and outlined and filled in every other heart on this card panel. And that really did finish off the card nicely. And here you are with card number 4. Card number 5 is going to be a shaker card, and I'm going to start with a 4x4 panel of this beautiful pattern paper, and I went ahead and cut out a heart die cut in the middle of it. Behind here in the white is actually a piece of acetate. This is heat resistant acetate from hot off the press. And the white that you see is actually just some backing paper that comes with the acetate. I just left it on there. And I had previously used my embossing buddy to dust this area where I was going to be stamping. And you can see that backing paper again. And that will help me when I'm embossing here so that the black won't stick to places I don't want it to stick. But the beauty of the heat resistant acetate is you can emboss right on top of it. You don't have to put it behind in the window, which sometimes when you do that, I feel like the expression or the stamp that you've used gets kind of covered up and lost. So by using it on the top, you have better odds of being able to see it, especially with this expression that has kind of a thin line to it. It would be hard to retain it and see it. And you can see here how little that heat resistant acetate waffled or changed due to the heat applied to it. And you see there too my powder from the embossing buddy. To clean that powder off, you just take a tissue and wipe it. I did both sides, the front and the back, and then also my work surface here so that it got removed from everything. And then you'll see that it's nice and clean and clear, all ready to go on my window. So to prepare for that, I've got the back side of this panel showing, and I'm taking my ATG tape gun here and just putting a layer of tape all the way around that heart. It doesn't have to be perfectly shaped like the heart, it really just has to go around it nicely so that it will stick to that acetate and create the window that I need. And once that's in place, then I can go ahead and put double-sided foam tape on and put it on my card base. So you see my card base and all of my foam tape that I've created. Now that's the window well The other foam tape is just to lift it up to the same height. Now this is a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch card base that I made using some Coordinations glitter finish paper. And I think the color, this tan color, goes really nicely. And I've used in this shaker well the heavy metal mix as well as some seed beads. And the heavy metal comes again from Creative Escape. The seed beads I've just had in my stash forever. Don't have any idea where that came from anymore. But I wanted to add a little bit more beading to this shaker. So I secure that in place, and now I've got a perfect little shaker window, and you can see that with love pretty nicely. Now I used a piece of the lavender ribbon that came in the kit and made a bow, and that will finish off this card. It's really simple and elegant. And that concludes card number 5. For card number 6, I picked out the Explore the Desert cut apart and this beautiful piece of 6x6 cardstock. I cut the cardstock down to 5 3/4 inch square, and this is the one where I took the center piece or that circle piece out for that previous card. So rather than waste this beautiful paper, I decided to create or use an old technique where you tear the edges up and have an image peeking out from underneath it. So when I was finished with that, it looks like this. And then I will go ahead and prepare the desert cut apart to go underneath it. I brought out the stencil again, and this time I'm using a finger dauber with the white shimmer Delicata ink pad. And I'm just applying some here and there to sort of almost create a watermark with it. It's a very subtle look, as you can see, but it just adds a little extra something to that cut apart. And I wanted it to have something special as it's peeking through. Now on the back, I'm going to apply the desert cut apart just so that there isn't any space showing. And so I'll use just some washi tape to secure that in place. And then I'll be ready to go ahead and put it on my 6x6 card base that I created with some paper in my stash. The card base was created using a piece of 12x12 cardstock I had in my stash, and it was really close to the brick red paper that was included in the kit. And so because of that, it really matches this designer paper so well, because obviously the kit was designed with the colors of the paper and the cardstock to coordinate and so forth. So keep that in mind when you get a card kit. If you're running short of a certain color, try to match it as closely as you can to something you have in your stash if possible, and then you can get even some more mileage out of it. Now I took the sentiment, just heat embossed in white, Never Stop Believing, and then I used some of this ivory ribbon and tied 3 simple knot bows across the end of it. I'm going to use wet glue here to apply this sentiment onto my card base, and this will finish card number 6. Here's a close-up of this card. I just wanted to show you the subtleness of that stencil pattern. And here's another shot of the finished card. For card number 7, I've cut a piece of cardstock sized 4 by 5 1/4, and I ran it through this Doris Conversation Hearts embossing folder. The embossing folder is going to do a lot of the work for us on this card. Now this is the heart that I cut out earlier from the heart shaker card, and again I'm going to reuse this. I love this paper. I'm trying to use every bit of it. And I just glued that onto the front of this card base with some foam tape. And then I'm using the white and pink baker's twine that was included in the kit, and I'm going to tie all 3 strands together by looping one of the ends underneath them all and then knotting it. Once that's done, I just spread out the twine pieces so that you can see all 3 of them clearly. It's one of my favorite ways to tie the twine, as you can really get a lot of coverage with the twine and it creates a nice look. Then I'll just trim down the ends to match the proportions of the card. Now this is some fun foam that I cut to fit the back of an A2 size card panel. I use ATG adhesive to attach that fun foam to the back of my card panel, and then this will go on top of the A2 size card base that I created using paper from the kit. And once again, this brick red just looks so wonderful with this particular pattern paper. I'm going to create just a small sentiment using the XOXO stamp sentiment that came in the kit, and I'm applying several layers actually of the Delicata ink to this. Just make sure you let it dry if you do this. It gives you a nice bold look, but it does need some time to dry. Then I just cut that out as a strip, added a little bit of art glitter glue, and I'm going to stick that in place on top of my heart with just a little bit underneath my twine. And then I'm finishing it off with 3 sequins from that heavy metal mix. And that just adds an elegant final touch to the overall look of the card. And here's a close-up look of the finished card. For card number 8, I've created a black sentiment strip here that says Wish Big, and that of course is using some stamps from the card kit. And I'm going to apply this to my card base. Now this is a 5-inch wide by 5.5-inch tall card base. It's an unusual size perhaps, but if you'd like to learn how to customize a Cricut envelope to fit any size card, just click on the right hand corner of your screen. I've got a video there on how to create a custom sized envelope. Alright, so I'm going to use a 1/2-inch strip of that beautiful rainbow mirror cardstock, and I cut this long, and then I'm going to trim it once I've got it glued in place. Experience has taught me that this is the best way to make sure any kind of cardstock that goes edge to edge actually reaches cleanly from side to side or from top to bottom. It solves the problem of cutting it and then finding it's just a hair bit too short. Alright, so then I took one of these cut aparts, the Travel to Andromeda, and I matted that on some chocolate cardstock that was included in the kit. I thought the sentiment went pretty well with the Travel to Andromeda little poster there because this is a huge galaxy and the sentiment says Wish Big. And then finally I created a bow out of that beautiful blue celestial ribbon, and this kind of ties the whole card together. I'll just trim up the edges or the ends of that bow, and that will finish card number 8. And here's a close-up of it. I hope you like that one. Card number 9 is going to be a 5 by 6.5-inch card. I've created a card panel that's slightly smaller than that using the Lunar Phase patterned paper from the 6x6 paper pack. And then I'm using the back side of that 12 by 12 cut apart that has this beautiful gold patterned paper to it. I chose 3 of these mini posters that were part of another piece of 6x6 cardstock. In a previous card I used a strip altogether. In this version I used a strip and cut it apart. And I have 2 pink and kind of a dark smoky one. So I'm going to put the smoky one in the center and the pinks on the side. I'm going to place that kind of in the middle and to the left and right. And that way it will use this really pretty gold foil paper as a background to these posters. I've created a sentiment to go on top of this. It says, "Sorry, I'm just going through a phase," and then I use the stamps that show the moon phase. So I thought that was such a cute little sentiment. I haven't really seen that one before and had to use it. So all 3 of my little mini posters are about the moon, and of course I'm using the moon phase paper, so I'm trying to create a theme here. And then I put that on top of this card base, which is a silver card base, and again that's sized 5 by 6.5. And there's the final card. Here's another close-up look of it. The final card of this series is a small card. It's 3 inches by 5.5 inches, and I have used some embossing buddy and stamped this with embossing ink. It is the pattern of the bow and arrow and the heart, and I'm just using white detail embossing powder, and I'll go ahead and heat emboss that. Okay, I have heat embossed this image, and now I'm just going to use a tissue and wipe off all the excess powder from my embossing buddy, and I'm ready to move on to the next stage. And I'm going to be using this little bit of leftover blue celestial ribbon, and I'm going to apply it onto this 1/2-inch piece of cardstock that looks like pink granite. Because I just love all these papers and this beautiful ribbon, I wanted to make sure I could use it as much as possible. before applying the glue, I did trim the one edge so it had a nice clean edge, nice clean cut. I'm going to apply that to the left edge of the card, and then I'll go ahead and be able to trim the right side up. And I'll just put that through my paper trimmer. And you can see by doing this, I have a nice clean edge going from side to side on this card. Now what I'm going to use is one of these stickers again, these epoxy stickers, and apply it to the right side is what I ended up deciding, onto this strip to kind of anchor the bottom of the card. And that could almost be done, but I decided I would add some additional sequins to the sky to create kind of this idea of there being stars out there. And this is the Blue Lightning custom mix from CEP that I used on this particular card. And that finished off card number 10. Well, that concludes this series of 10 cards using the January 2019 Creative Escape Paper Crafting Card Kit. I hope this inspired you with some new ideas and some ways to use this card kit. Don't forget to visit CEP at their website. The link is included in my video description. Well, once again, thank you for joining me here today. I really appreciate you visiting, and I've put up here the link to subscribe to my channel and also to a couple more videos that I think you might be interested in seeing if you like this one. So I hope to see you back soon, but until then, keep crafting. Bye!